section of our class. This is Module 8 of Research Methodology, and in this module, we'll be treating the topic academic writing across disciplines, so which is otherwise known as the mastering the craft of scholarly communication. So that is trying to analyze academic writing across different disciplines from scholarly, that is the scholarly communication from different perspectives. Now we have the contents of the module to be one. In this module, we'll be looking at writing academic assessments using a structured step-by-step approach. And after that, we'll move on to writing research projects in arts and humanities. So after justifying that, we'll move on to writing research projects in social and management sciences. And also after that, we'll look at writing research projects in engineering disciplines. Also look at writing research projects in health and nursing sciences. So and also look at writing research projects in information and communication technology. And finally, also looking at common errors and best practices in academic and research writing before we jump to the conclusion of for this module. So if we notice that this module has been able to bring instances from different studies and different disciplines, where we have arts and humanities, social and management science, in engineering, in health and nursing, and information and communication technology. So the different there are different styles in when we are talking about academic writing. We have different styles to different disciplines and all. So we'll be looking at these disciplines one after the other. So we as a learner can know the differences, and whichever discipline we find ourselves to be writing projects or research at, we'll be able to follow the step-by-step guide in writing in writing academic writing. Sorry. So now let's move on to the introduction to the module. We have academic writing. What is academic writing now? It's we have it here that it represents the primary vehicle through which scholars communicate research findings, theoretical arguments, and scholarly insights across disciplines. It is just the basic and the foundation vehicle or means of passing across in communication from the scholars to other researchers about research findings and the theoretical arguments and even scholarly insights across different disciplines that we have. The challenges that we have for academic writing, it lies not merely in mastering technical skills of grammar, in citation and organization, but the main challenges is in understanding and navigating the rhetorical expectations, the argumentative structures, and evidence standards specific to different academic communities. Despite these disciplinary variations, certain fundamental principles unite effective academic writing across fields. So, academic assessment writing, when we're trying to write assessments, whether essays or reports or dissertation or thesis, it requires strategic approaches that move systematically from understanding assignments through planning, drafting, revising, and polishing and the likes. So research project writing, it represents the combination of extensive investigation, analysis, and synthesis. So now let's look at why is academic writing, why is it unique? Why do we find academic writing to be a unique writing? So it is like the currency of academia. The purpose is to communicate research, to advance knowledge, and also to engage in scholarly debate. It is there not just to inform. So academic writing is there not just to inform us, but also to persuade a specialized audience. You understand? This specialized audience might come in different form. It depends on the audience and this research. So now the main purpose is that we should know that academic writing is there to communicate. It's not there to just it's not to just inform, but also to persuade the audience. Now let's look at the core characteristics of academic writing. We have it is formal and objective, it is structured and logical, it is source driven, then it is also discipline specific. So we're talking about formal and objective as one of the core characteristics of academic writing. It is we have it that it is clear, it is usually clear, precise, evidence-based, and unbiased. It is mainly strictly based on the data and the information. which would also be known to the audience. So now structured and logical. This is to tell us that it follows conventions that guide the reader. So there is a particular there are conventions that need to be followed, and in which this is why it is structured and logical. It is source driven in the sense that it engages with existing literature, sites and everything. This is there is no miracle anywhere. This is what we are trying to achieve. Any academic writing, there is no a miracle, or the researcher is not trying to perform a miracle or anything like that. We can actually have access to the source. We know there are existing literature. It's not coming. The literature is not coming down from heaven. It is definitely going to be an existing literature that cites everything, which we can also always bounce back to confirm what the researcher is talking about. And it is discipline specific, which implies that it follows the rules and styles of your field, which will be addressing one after the other. So let's move on to the universal writing process, which is a step-by-step guide writing process. You don't just start writing for writing sake. You have to do the following. One is to decode the task, and to decode this task means that you analyze the prompts, the rubric. What are the directive verbs? You analyze, you compare, you argue, and you also evaluate. So what's the required format and length? Try to understand the task well enough. Then after understanding the task, you move on to you planning and research. And in doing this, you try to brainstorm, you create a rough outline and conduct focused research. And also take smart notes. It is very essential and necessary. So when you are done with planning and research, you move on to draft. Yes, this is the messy first version. You can start anywhere. Often the body is easier than the introduction. You get your own ideas down. You don't edit yet. You just try to draft everything down that comes to your mind. So now the fourth one is you revise, and this is the big picture, which is otherwise known as your editing part. By structuring arguments, check flow, strengthen evidence, and ensure your thesis is clear. This is where the real work happens actually. So and the fifth one is edit and proofread. And in doing this, you try to fix sentence clarity, grammar clarity, and word choice and formatting. Also, check all citations meticulously. So writing is all about writing. Budget your time accordingly. So now let's move to the first this discipline that we look at, which is writing in arts and humanities. I believe we know what the department of faculty that has to do with arts and humanities. So now it has to do with writing in arts and humanities mainly has to do with interpretation, arguments, and close reading. You understand? The core task is to make and support an interpretative argument about text, artifacts, or ideas. Yeah, that's the core task. You make or support an interpretative argument. The key features of writing in arts and humanities is that one, it is thesis driven also. Two is evidence from primary sources and engagement with theory. Then the fourth one is nuance style. So we're talking about thesis driven. That is just like what we mentioned initially. That it is a strong debatable central claim. Is everything. You can actually get evidence for primary sources. Sorry about that. Excuse me. So evidence from primary sources is that there is deep analysis of the text or artwork itself. So there is always evidence from the primary sources that we are using to carry out the research, which the reader can also verify. And the third one is the engagement with story. There is definitely in writing in art and humanities, you have framework. You make use of this framework, which will be determining situations familiar to the unfamiliar and relevant to illuminate or how to carry out our analysis. So when I'm talking about one style writing in arts and humanities, is that it's valued. It's valued. Sorry about that. It is valued for elegance and persuasive power. The structure is more flexible. It is organized to serve the argument. Example of writing in art. An example is we have through its use of fragmented narrative. Virginia Woolf's lighthouse critiques the limitation of traditional patriarchal historiography as an example. So let's move on to writing in social and management sciences. So writing in this discipline, social and management sciences, it also has theory based on evidence and the inward structure. So the core task is to navigate human and social phenomena using empirical data, testing or building theory. One of the key features of social and management science, writing in social and management science, is that one, we have inward structure, where we have inward structure in the sense that introduction, methods, results, and discussion, which is the gold standard. It is always in that structure. Also, one another features is that it is theory plus evidence. It is theory driven as well. It explicitly links a theoretical framework to collected data. And the APA style, which is the dominant formatting and citation style for this. Four is the objective tone. We make use of past tense for methods or results present for the discussion, as we have in the inward structure. Visuals, and also it requires the heavy use of tables, graphs, and statistical outputs. So example under this is the study. This study uses regression analysis to test the hypothesis that transformational leadership positively predicts team. Now let's take another step further to writing in engineering and ICT now. So when we are talking about writing in engineering and ICT, the main focus is that it is there for problem solving, for precision and technical documentation. And the core task for writing in engineering and ICT is that it is there to define a technical problem, to present a novel solution, and to prove it works. So the key features in writing in engineering and ICT, we have problem solution framework, we have technical precision, we have visual and mathematical language, we have reproducibility, and we have performance metrics. So problem solution frameworks is clear statements of the gap or gap need, followed by your design methods and the likes. So example of writing an example under writing in engineering and ICT is that we propose a novel congestion control algorithm in figure 3 that reduces latency by 23% compared to TCP handling. So this is an example of writing in engineering and ICT. Another key features before we move on is that it has to do with visual and mathematical language, which includes diagram, schematics, flowcharts, and equations. They are very essential. So let's move on to the next subtopic, which is the perils of plagiarism. So writing is just more than copying and pasting. So because there is what we call academic fraud, and that is where plagiarism comes in. So plagiarism is the presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without intent. Either you do it intentionally or not. So you just trying to copy or present someone else's work or idea as your own. So now we have different forms to which we can the periods of plagiarism can take place. We have copying text, we have paraphrasing too closely, we have using ideas without citation, submitting someone else's work. These are different forms that plagiarism comes in. Copying a one person text to word for word. This is as an example of plagiarism. Then paraphrasing too closely. Then using ideas without citation, using someone's idea without citing the person, is the work of the individual, of the scholar, and submitting someone else's work. These are these are different forms of plagiarism, and we have to be very careful about that. Why is plagiarism serious now? It is what we refer to as academic theft or academic fraud, and it violates the core principle of intellectual honesty. Consequences can be severe, which could be failing grade or expulsion. So how do we avoid plagiarism now? In order to avoid plagiarism, one, we have to take notes in your own words from the start. So you take notes in your own words. Secondly is to understand your source fully before you try to write about it. And the third one is always cite. And in doing this, you direct quotes with quotation marks, paraphrased ideas, you use data, images, or specific information. And the fourth one is you use a citation manager and know your style guide, APA, MLA, Chicago, and the like. So let's move on to crafting a killer introduction and conclusion. How do we how do we create a proper introduction and conclusion, which is where we are first and last impression that matters. the introduction. For your introduction, your that is which is your contract with the reader. You make use of hook, the background, the gap, the thesis, and the roadmap. We are talking about the hook. You start with context. Why does this topic matter? Answering why does this topic matter. And your background, in doing this, you briefly establish the scholarly conversation or problem space. And the gap here, you establish your gap, and in doing this, you identify what is missing or what problem you are solving in your research. Then the thesis or objective, you clearly state your main arguments or research questions, while the roadmap, you briefly outline the structure of your paper. Now, the other listing, which is the conclusion, it is the synthesis, not the summary of your work. You restate your thesis, that is by reiterating your answer or argument in light of the evidence presented. You synthesize key points. You discuss implications. So what are the broader meanings, the theoretical or practical parts, and you also acknowledge limitations and suggest future research. Which shows at least acknowledge limitation and suggesting future research will definitely show critical thinking. So now let's move on to the top 5 common errors to avoid. What are the top 5 common errors to avoid? You can also call it pitfalls that can undermine your work. One is vague thesis. So this paper is about leadership. You have to be specific and arguable. Two is source soup. A paragraph that is just a string of quotes. Your voice should lead, sources provide support. You should write in your own voices. Your source should just provide support to what you are trying to say. You understand? Not that you put your source all and on without anything coming from you. And the third one is poor signposting. That is jumping between ideas without transitions. Use topic sentences and linking words. And 4 is ignoring the rubric. So when you writing a great essay that doesn't answer the assigned question is a no. Is a pitfall that needs to be avoided in order not to undermine our work. So ignoring the rubric, writing an essay that doesn't answer the assigned question. You always go back to the prompt. That's the way forward. Always go back to the prompt to ensure you've answered the question. And the fifth one is skipping the revision phase. That is by submitting your first draft. Revision is where good writing is great writing. So getting the basic right is the defense of the practice. Now let's move on to the best practices for success, which is the habit of highly effective writers. One is that you start early. So good writing cannot be rushed. It needs time to marinate. You read examples, and you also actively analyze well-written papers in your field. So how are they structured and the likes? You write regularly, you seek feedback, and you also master your tools. In doing this, you try to be your own worst critic. So let's move on to the next part, which is the conclusion for this thing. And in doing this, we have to do one or two. So I will the conclusion, that is the takeaway and the final words in this work. In this module, we have been able to establish the fact that you write like a scholar in your field. One process many styles and know your conventions. Thank you. For this class, we'll be moving on to the next part, next module, which is module 8, where we'll be analyzing the next topic for this